in
I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly on ARPA investment review, economic development. It is Friday, March 18, 2022, and we are noticed from 11:30 to 12:30 today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will start first with introductions. We'll go around the room and then to the phone.
Pete Peterson.
Forrest Dunbar.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Kirk Rose, Anchorage Community Land Trust.
And from the clerk's office,
Jennifer Veniclausen, Deputy Clerk. And Desiree Camacho.
we have other folks in the audience, and we'll have you introduce yourselves in a second. Ms. Veniclausen, would you go through the phone list, please?
Yes, Mr. Rivera.
Present.
Miss Allard.
Here.
Miss Kennedy.
Here.
Miss Quinn Davidson.
Here.
Madam Chair, that's all the members I see on the phone.
Thank you, Ms. Veniclausen. Mr. Perez Verdia and Mr. Constant have conflicts and are unable to attend. They're excused. And if we could quickly have a round of introductions from folks in the back, and I understand a number of you are here to present. Do we have, or?
Do you want to maybe just do it when they present?
Actually, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll just do it when you present. I only wanted to do introductions early because sometimes it's easier for folks on the phone to know who's in the room since we have a number of people, but we'll get to that. So again, thank you for joining us today. As Assembly members, we are committed to the economic health and development of our community and have worked hard to deliver federal relief funds to the people who needed it the most. Over the past 2 years, we distributed $214 million to local businesses, nonprofits, and individuals that help prevent an economic crisis and delivered valuable services to people in need. We also used that funding to try new ways of doing business and learned a lot about how we can make local government, businesses, and organizations more nimble and efficient. As we prepare for the next round of federal relief funds this spring, we wanted to hear from different grant recipients and local businesses to learn how past funds were used and what their plans are for the future. To learn more, we are hosting a series of work sessions this month on different topics. We've heard from the tourism industry, childcare providers, and food security and housing organizations. The next work session will focus on quality of life and families. Today, we are focusing on economic development organizations. We have Kirk Rose here from the Anchorage Land Trust to give a presentation. We will have a presentation from the Business Boutique by Dave Wahlberg and Jasmine Smith. We will have a presentation by United Way and restaurant owners. I understand we have Clark Halverson here. And then we will hear from the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership, Alyssa Rodriguez. We want to keep it flexible, but you will each have about 7 to 10 minutes to make your presentation on how you used your funds and your forecast for the coming year. That should leave time for some Q&A with Assembly members. I strongly encourage you to bring participants in your program up when you come forward to do your presentation. And so we'll go ahead in this order. First, we'll hear from the Anchorage Community Land Trust, then the Business Boutique, and then Restaurant Rescue Meals Program, and the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Again, thank you so much for being here today, and I will turn to Mr. Rose.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm Kirk Rose, CEO of Anchorage Community Land Trust. I very much appreciate the chance to be in front of the body on Tuesday evening and to be back with you today. I'm going to restate our impact and results of work and say thank you for your investment with ACLT through the use of ARPA funding, and I'm happy to detail the work that we've done with it. I'm also excited to share some of our future opportunities that we see from our little corner of the world. So wonderful to be with you. Anchorage Community Land Trust has worked on neighborhood commercial corridors for over 18 years. And in that work, we meet some incredible small business owners and entrepreneurs who are transforming their communities by taking it on themselves as small business owners and entrepreneurs to be the leaders, change makers, role models, advocates, wealth generators, employers in their communities. The work of these entrepreneurs is what inspires me every single day, and to see entrepreneurs who land in their dream location in a commercial corridor like Mountain View or on Ingrid Gamble or on Spenard Road is incredibly inspiring and incredibly important for our communities. That's the kind of work that we do every day at ACLT. We have the true honor and pleasure to work with entrepreneurs like you're seeing on the screen. Some of them you may know, some of them you may not know, but these are people who are making a difference in their community and who we've gotten to know through our program Set Up Shop, which is a program that focuses on 4 components which support entrepreneurs on their journey. So those 4 components are training, access to capital or micro lending, business services, which we also call technical assistance, and real estate. To date, we've been operating this program over 4 years now, and it's been quite a journey. To date, we've trained 170 graduates, and we've just welcomed a new class of Set Up Shop entrepreneurs. I couldn't believe it, but it's almost our 17th cohort now of trainees that have come through our program. We've served over 200 businesses in this model with direct one-on-one assistance. That's the number you're seeing in green. We work within our neighborhood commercial corridors with the people in our communities. 83% of our clients are BIPOC or BIPOC business owners, 75% low to low income, and we're very, very proud to be working with so many female-owned businesses, close to 70% of our program. I also want to highlight a number here, which is 57 leaseholders. So it's not just the new entrepreneurs in our communities, it's the businesses that are holding down their corridors and already established in bricks and mortar programs or bricks and mortar locations. They're part of our program too, and those are the folks that we love working with to provide technical assistance. I'm looking at this slide, and it looks like that 90% number doesn't have any note to it, but that 90% number, it relates to our lending number. So 90% of the loans that we make are directly in the communities where we have a geographic focus, which are Mountain View, Fairview, Spenard, Downtown, and Muldoon. I wanted to highlight one other thing. We are so fortunate to have wonderful community partners that help us on our training program. We've done specific cohorts with Alaska Native communities, with Polynesian and Pacific Islander communities, and many more. And those kinds of deep partnerships in the neighborhood help this program really succeed and help us find the next generation of entrepreneurs. I'm going to come back to this slide. We're very appreciative of the funds that you invested with ACLT. You made a grant of $195,000, which we used to hire 3 staff to support our business assistance throughout the pandemic. You also made an award of $130,000 for a new module of Setup Shop that we called Anchorage Online Bootcamp. I shared a bit of this data at the assembly meeting Tuesday night, but through that staffing award, we've served 2,000 hours of direct technical assistance to small business entrepreneurs. We also managed a text tool which did over 50,000 unique text messages that went out to over 3,000 business subscribers throughout the pandemic. From that networking and engagement, our pipeline of services just got totally blown up and expanded. So our client load has been absolutely massive that we're trying to serve. Obviously, with immediate pandemic needs, like how do I fill out my PPP application? What is the state grant program? Hey, I saw something on Facebook and it seems like some program is opening up. Our staff was in the middle of all of that. And I know many of the people in this room were doing that work too. And none of this could be done without the collaboration that we've all had throughout this. So I thank them all for that. Through that engagement, though, our work has been, like I said, very much expanded with new clients and entrepreneurs, as well as what we've all experienced across the city is that entrepreneurialism has expanded throughout the pandemic too, as a result of the Great Resignation. People for their first time are saying, you know what, I'm ready to take that risk, or I'm ready to put out my own shingle. And so in times of hardship, actually entrepreneurs, because they're built the way they are, they say, this is my time. So that staffing has been absolutely huge to provide the direct technical assistance. But I will say that work is not one time. It's not over. When you build that relationship with a client, the last thing you want to do is have that opportunity to work with their business go out the window. So we are seeing the need for additional TA to date. It's not like our client load and frequency has just kind of magically disappeared. Going back to the other part of the award that you made with ACLT, went to a program that we called Anchorage Online Bootcamp. And this was really to help business owners with their online presence because of the predominance of online transactions that the pandemic really exacerbated. So when emergency orders happened and businesses shut down for all the right reasons, then boy, it made a lot of difference if your website looked good, if you had beautiful product photography, if your Facebook worked, if your online ordering system worked. And we know that some people were equipped for that transition and some were less equipped. And this program specifically was working to bridge that digital divide. So we've just recruited our 3rd cohort. That'll be 45 total businesses served. We've built beautiful websites. We're working on product photography and entrepreneur photos, 90 plus one-on-one consulting hours with brand and logo design consultants. This program has been absolutely phenomenal and is gearing those entrepreneurs who needed it most up with wonderful digital online presence that isn't going to just be a response for the next year. It's going to be a 10-year investment in their business. I want to highlight one other thing is that we've worked with tons and tons of local contractors to build these services for these entrepreneurs. So that money that you've invested with us helped us hire a staff member, but it also has been used to support a number of local contractors to work with these small business owners to give them the online presence they need to succeed. So here's some of the results of Anchorage Online Bootcamp. Gwen Alexander, known as GMA in the Mountain View neighborhood and beyond. She's got a beautiful new logo. Her online web service has made a huge difference, and she's already seeing major sales happening through her online platform. GMA's Crafts and Treats. And then I wanted to highlight this one too. We went through a significant rebrand with a business formerly known as the Horn Doctor, who's looking to use the pandemic as a pivot to a new organizational name and a new identity within the community, which is Alaska Music and Sound. So another business that is using the pandemic to really spring forward and needs a beautiful online platform to do that. So I think that's a good example of what ACLT does in terms of technical assistance working with entrepreneurs. I'm excited to say that we've leveraged your initial investment in Anchorage Online Bootcamp to obtain funding with Wells Fargo. So they've been a huge supporter of our Anchorage Online Bootcamp module to the tune of $350,000, which helps us sustain that program over the next 3 years. Additionally, we have a couple exciting things that I want to highlight before my time runs out. But we have an Alaska Native Setup Shop cohort working with Cook Inlet Tribal Council that we're calling Alaska People's Setup Shop. Again, your funds have helped us leverage additional monies, this time through EDA. We'll be supporting 20 Alaska Native entrepreneurs over the next year. We'll also be utilizing Cook Inlet's incredible new Super Fab Lab space in Muldoon and working with these entrepreneurs to iterate and use that design thinking from the Super Fab Lab to make their products and services even more useful. And then lastly, we've been working on the issue of access to kitchen space with entrepreneurs. 60% of the businesses that we meet within our programming are food-based businesses. So they make mohinga noodles or falafel or an amazing chocolate chip cookie. And one of the perennial issues for entrepreneurs in our city is access to kitchen space. So either you're doing that out of your home kitchen or you're trying to scrape and find a kitchen somewhere. ACLT can support you with brand and logo and your books and your online presence, but if you can't make that cookie or if you can't make that falafel, what does it really matter? We've run into this issue so many times that we feel like it's become one of the paramount issues that we need to solve in our city to really unlock a lot of potential for entrepreneurs. And we are working to find a space and build multiple kitchen bays so that entrepreneurs can access this space. This would be a 24/7 facility with rentable permitted commercial kitchen space that we could plug in the first year. We're still working on the pro forma and some of the assumptions, but close to 15 to 25 businesses. And through the life of a facility, if you build it the right way, honestly, hundreds of businesses in our Anchorage entrepreneur ecosystem that can get the jumpstart they need, can test their products and menu, and take their first stab without, leasing a 100-seater restaurant or taking a major financial risk.
And I'd like to note for the record, we've been joined by Mr. Weddleton. And if Mr. Rose, if you could go ahead and wrap up.
Perfect.
Mr. Weddleton has just asked you to start over.
And that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned there was a facility that recently opened in East Anchorage. What's the location?
Of the Super Fab Lab?
Yeah.
I don't know the address off the top of my head, but the Muldoon landmark is the Krispy Kreme, and it's right next door to the Krispy Kreme there. And it actually used to be an old Body Renew, the Body Renew next to, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. And thank you, Mr. Rose, for the presentation. I don't have any other members in the queue right now, but we may come back, time permitting, to a general Q&A session. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I believe our next presentation, the Business Boutique, will that be over the phone, Ms. Veneklausen? No. Oh, half and half. Welcome. So we have Jasmine Smith in the room and Dave Wahlberg, I believe, is on the phone. Is that correct?
Yes. David, can you hear us okay?
And when you speak, if you press the button so that the green light is on, and I'll turn mine off here.
Perfect. So thank you for giving us this time to present. I do have some handouts if anyone wants a copy of what we're going to go over. My name is Jasmine Smith, and I am the founder of the Business Boutique. Traditionally, we focus on business development and also community coordination in areas that are underserved. And we work with organizations to determine, and communities to determine what their priorities are and what they feel like they need to be, economically sound, safe, gainfully employed and living a good life. So when the opportunity came to assist with the gift card program, it was a little bit out of our normal realm, but it was something that needed to be done. And it was an area that had a lot of discussion from community members. So we were happy to oblige. And I can be very candid and say it's been one of the hardest programs we've done, but it's been very, very rewarding. So David and I are going to go through our presentation more so Q&A style with the questions that we get asked the most. And then I want to wrap it up at the end with sharing some successes, demographics, and what's next, and then take questions. So we did the COVID gift card program. We have done 3 rounds so far. We are currently in round 3. And this program need came from the Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee from the previous mayor's task force that said there are a lot of people in our community who have basic needs, hunger, supplies for their children, gas, and medicine. So that's where this original idea came from, was from that committee to assist people with basic necessities. And we would have never imagined how big that need was had we not done this program. So the demand was so great, and David will talk about how many applications we received, that it was determined we would have to just do a lottery style selection after vetting applicants to see that they were qualified per se to get a gift card. And then from there, we had an open application process from every corner of the city. We literally had a street team that went from Girdwood to Eklutna, knocking on doors, putting in flyers. We had people who were translators in different languages, just going into every single community saying, do you need a gift card? Are you hungry? Do you need gas? Do your kids need something? Are you good to go with Christmas? Are you, can we help you do something? So that's really the background of where we came from with this program, and just being able to help with basic needs and necessities. Our application process was done in collaboration with the city. We worked with the IT department and had our application go through the IT department in the city server. That way the data was secure and we could pull it up at any given time and track down to the IP address of where it came from and collect all information we needed. We also wanted to ensure we had good historical information for future rounds and future administrations and assemblies, so you know what we did with your money. So having said that, David, I'll turn it over to you to answer some of these other questions, and then I'll pick back up at the end.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Jasmine. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and do my part of this.
And David's our director, the Business Boutique.
The first one is, how did we do applications? We used the city server and the IT department to create and house applications and data, and the phone, in person, and the ESL2. How much funding did we get? We got $4 million. How many applicants were received? We had 25,422 applications. How many total families served in round 1 and 2 by mail was 8,319. And then how many total individuals were served in round 1 and 2 by mail? 1,899. How many people picked up their gift cards in person in round 1 and 2? We had 662. How many people needed to be served in round 3? We have 11,204. How many people have been served in round 3 so far? We have 1,800, and that's in person and mail. How many, or what stores did we work with? We did Red Apple, the National Pantry, Cars, Fred Meyer's, Walmart. And then what was the top needed, or what was the top needed communication by people who got the card? Supplies for kids, food, and gas.
And just
And with
picky,
that, I
oh.
will turn it back over to Jasmine.
Thanks, David. And just piggybacking off of that, when we say families versus individuals, I think important historical context is when we were first approached about doing this, it was told to us that families would receive $400 and individuals who did not have children under the age of 18 would receive $200. I will be the first to say on record, I bit the bullet on that. And I said, we have to cut that number in half because that's going to result in only a handful of families being served when we have 25,000 applications coming through. So I made the executive nonprofit grantee decision to say, we're going to give families 200 and we're going to give individuals 100. That way we're not leaving as many people not served. And I think about 80% of the applicants understood that. Of course, we had some angry ones, but I had to explain, you got to share because everyone's in need right now and we can reach more people. So we defined families as having children under the age of 18 in their household. Individuals, we had a lot of people who were like elderly, a lot of people who were homeless. We had a lot of instability with addresses, which we are still in this program. This literally resulted in us, delivering gift cards by hand. We took gift cards to some of the shelters. We had people come to our office. We met them in places. So our team really went above and beyond to make sure we didn't miss anybody, from having applications in different languages to doing it in person on the phone. We worked with the CPLN program through the COVID in the city, and they helped us do a lot of applications and reach out to their communities as well. And literally any program that we could think of that dealt with people who might have a need, we went there. Businesses who said that they were struggling, entrepreneurs, we met a big gamut of people. So the thing that I really was excited to share with you was some of the data that we received from this program. So when they did their application, we asked them a series of questions. Some of the questions had more weight because it would allow us to just vet their need better, but some of them was for data purposes. And we did a little piece of it actually with ACLT, and that awesome text platform was super, super helpful. So I'm gonna go over some of the data and share with you guys, and then I'll talk about kind of what's next. So from their applications, we found out that 61% of the people who received a gift card from us reported that was the first time they had gotten any kind of pandemic assistance. 82% of them opted into the text alerts and information. Shout out to Emily and Kirk, and then we worked with them and we put that question on our application. Do you want us to give your number to them as well so they can have it? 82% said yes, they wanted more information. Of the people who received a gift card, 43% of them were on Medicaid. 51% of them were on Social Security. 47% of them were on regular or pandemic unemployment. 72% of them had food stamps as well. 12% of the applications we processed of that 25,000 were paper, and they physically came in, or we allowed them to email it to us, their case manager or their entity. 27% of the applications were done over the phone. We had a lot of people who were elderly and they're like, we can't do the computer no matter how easy you make it. I'm not going to try. So we just did it for them over the phone. 61% of the applications completed were online, and 26% of the people who completed an application and got a gift card were homeless or in a group home. The top 3 languages that we processed outside of English for these applications and gift card recipients, Spanish was the top non-English application language, followed by Samoan was the second top non-English application language, and then Tagalog was the third one. And if I said the fourth one, we had a lot of applications in need from the Sudanese community as well. So then going into the disbursement, we went a step further and we were collecting neighborhood data and gift card data. Literally, when I say we went from Eklutna to Girdwood, we recognize that need shows no neighborhood. Sometimes anyone can be hungry. So we tried to be really aware of that on this program. 21% of the people who got a gift card lived in the Muldoon Boniface area. 18% of the people who got a gift card lived in Mountain View, Airport Heights. And then 12.12% was Tudor and Lake Otis, followed by 8.63% was downtown Fairview. From there, we saw a lot of people from Spenard area, particularly Coots, Midtown, and then Raspberry and Sand Lake, which we thought made sense because there is some public housing over there. And literally, we had people all over the board from J-Bear to Indian, Girdwood, and everything in between. And so where we are right now is we are actively in round 3 of this gift card program. So like David mentioned, there was still 11,204 people who were waiting for a gift card. And I can say that I think the pandemic has impacted housing stability because we've had a record number of returned addresses, incomplete addresses, and disconnected phone numbers, which has resulted in us shifting from solely mailing gift cards to having to now do a hybrid in-person pickup and mailing for those that's addresses is correct. So at the rate we're going based off what we did in the past, probably doing gift cards to almost the end of the year, just from this original third level. And it's not giving out the gift cards that's the work. It's just trying to find people and getting them to, be able to come in and working through the feelings and the stories, and then, having to do like other referrals and all that kind of stuff at the same time. So we found that there is a big need for just basic assistance and necessity. And, in a perfect world, that wasn't our initial entity focus, but we're happy to do it. And I think we've done a really good job, and I'm really proud of our team for doing this with some really stressful days. And we don't ever take it personal. We know people are going through a lot. They're hungry. They have house issues. And so we don't mind when they yell at us. We just smile and give them a gift card and tell them have a good day. And we hope it helps. So we're happy to provide any more information as we work through round 3. We'll update this information to include that. We have a working spreadsheet, and I'm open to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Smith. First in the queue is Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much, Jasmine and David, for this presentation. And, I first want to say, I really appreciate this particular program because it seems to have reached a population that was otherwise not really reached by our various aid programs out of the municipality. And, people, I think there's a tendency to look at that $100, $200, and some folks think, oh, that's not a lot of money, but ultimately it is for folks right on the edge. And for those of us who have worked with people experiencing poverty or experienced as ourselves, it's really impactful. My question is, so you're in round 3, and I assume that will exhaust the $4 million, or you said that this was the hardest program you had to run.
Yes.
Would your organization be able or willing to run around 4 if we were to fund it?
Yeah, I think we could. I know I have a whole checklist of things. I'm like, next time we're going to do this way and do this differently. So short answer is yes, we could definitely do it again. I think there'll be a need for it again. And I'm always open to, suggestions and more collaboration. So my short answer is yes, we would do it again. I just think this time our program was a little bit different because literally 97% of our program was direct gift cards. So in essence, how we budgeted and it was brought to us in the past, we now realize it didn't work. So if we got like $4 million, 3% of that was like business boutique staffing, expenses, and time. 97% of that was strictly buying gift cards. And we now realize that percent is not enough to be hiring people, driving, outreach, applications. So I would say we'd have to relook at that if we're going to have a more impact and be able to support anyone being able to do this.
What if it was not 4 million, but something smaller, like a $1 million
Oh, that's doable.
round?
Yeah, that'd be a lot easier. And I think we've worked through so many of the kinks and kind of learned that we kind of have a good system now. So I think that would be doable.
Okay. And I'll say, I realize that sort of some of the economic harms of the pandemic have passed or are being reduced, but I think particularly with the rise in prices, a lot of our families, and you can see here in Muldoon and Mountain View in particular, are really struggling. And so you see things like the state legislature planning a $1,300 energy relief check, and I think this is sort of in line with that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. So I have 3 members in the queue, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Weddleton, and then Mr. Rivera. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, Jeb, what's your current balance left from the original 4 million right now?
Yes. So currently we have about, I don't have the number with me, but I think it's about 180,000. Remember our program, it's buying the gift cards. So, you have to order them and then you have to document them and stuff. So it's easier to get it all in one big batch than breaking it into smaller orders.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Weddleton?
Green's on. Okay. That's 2 questions. So So one is, so you have 108,000. It seems like why wasn't that done as part of the rounds 1 and 2? I mean, it's a relatively small percent considering you had 4 million. And then the second thing, and kind of what, Forrest had brought up, we're in a whole different world than we were a year and a half, 2 years ago. I mean, I don't imagine there's anyone on the planet who want to say, sure, I could use another $100.
Right.
So the need is everyone.
Yeah.
But, now we have jobs that are businesses that can't hire employees. There's not enough people working. So it's kind of flipped. I mean, at one point, geez, they couldn't find jobs. There wasn't work. Now, plenty of work. So, I mean, maybe this money should go for something else than just here's $100 and go to how do we help you get a job and do job placement or something like that and make those connections.
Well, I think you touched on two good things. So let's go back to the first one with the financing. So when we did this program initially, there really wasn't, we didn't really negotiate how anything worked. It was just told like, this is what it is and this is how it's going to go. So we just did what we were told. But, as time progressed and we were able to do our accounting and budgeting and seeing how it broke down, like, oh, we need some little reform here if this is going to work. In regards to the gift card question and how to do it moving forward, that's one of the things on our list as well. You want to balance need versus opportunity. And I think there's still power in having, a gift card in some capacity. But I think as we move towards a different phase in the pandemic, I do think we can get more creative and have more vetting with like, maybe it's for you to go back to work. Maybe this does have a condition with it. Maybe you can have it going towards, business owners and we deploy it there instead as an incentive to help them get employees. So I think this first round 1, 2, and 3 just did that basic need of people are going through things in a pandemic. But I think now there are ways to look at it and say, how can you take this concept of just a gift card and make it something different, whether you change the user, the incentive, how you get it or what it's used for. I think that has some weight and that's a good point to bring up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Rivera?
Yeah, thank you. My question was along the lines of what Mr. Weddleton was asking. And so I'm hoping that he might be able to just illuminate and describe the need. And then if you have any sort of updated data in terms of how many people are still on unemployment and sort of what that looks like, I think that would be really helpful. I mean, I can, sit here and say, yeah, there's need in the community, but if there's a way to describe that, I think that would be really helpful to us.
Yeah, I can definitely work on that. Since we're actively in 3, I don't have all that yet because we're literally in that phase right now. But that's the same thing our team said too, was like, now that we've done this 3 times and you kind of went through the like, I just need help. Now, how do you ensure you do this, more meaningful? And it's not just, oh, I'm going to get a cool free gift card, like there has to be more thought with it. And I think that's what made it, a little harder last time because it was like, oh, it's just a lottery. It's just kind of random. Like, well, lotteries are hard because you don't really have any oversight as to the why and the biggest need. So I do think there's ways to have funding and support and switch the user. Like you said, maybe it could be going to, businesses this time and asking them to support their employees getting to work, or I'm not sure, but I do think it's something worth thinking about and having another conversation about when this next, round of funding comes out. What's the need now?
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate your presentation and the work that you and your organization have done. We will need to move on to our third presentation on the Restaurant Rescue Meals Program. Welcome. And if you all would start with introductions. And just a reminder to, when you speak into the microphone, make sure the green button is showing. So you need to press the button. And actually, while the presentation is being set up, if we could go ahead and start with introductions.
Good afternoon, Clark Halverson with the United Way of Anchorage. Good afternoon. I'm Sylvia Vilamides, Alaska Hospitality Retailers.
Hi, I'm Brandy Rathbun with Moose a la Mode.
Jason Motika, Fort Nancy Brewing Company.
Welcome, all of you.
Great. Thank you so much for making the time. Super excited to be here with our partners and the people that can really talk about what the boots on the ground felt through this exercise for us. So I wanted to start just by saying how excited we are to continue to be a strong partner with the municipality. This is really another step in a long history that we've had working with you, and really can see the strength of that relationship as we went into this. This program was launched in the beginning weeks of the pandemic, kind of right when we started learning what non-pharmaceutical interventions were. We started to see businesses being closed and a lot of employees having to go home. We saw also overnight the restaurant industry sales crash by 72%, seeing thousands of those employees having to really have stress increase in their life, thinking about where they were going to be able to get additional dollars to put food on the table, pay for childcare, the different pieces. At that time, we really got together with Sylvia, the restaurant, our whole United Way team, and really developed a program off of some models that were going on in different areas of the country. And in that work, really developed this win-win-win. We like to talk about it in that way of work, where we really were able to find ways to keep restaurants open that weren't able to stay open, to keep employees on the job, as well as get food to who needed it most in our community. And wanted to highlight on this slide, you see all the names on there. We were also able to leverage our relationships and bring in the Rasmussen Foundation, Alaska Community Foundation, dollars that came in through AK Can Do, the Hospitality Retailers Association, and over 200 donors. We turned your 2.8 million into 4.1 million that went through this project, which was really great for us to be able to do.
And if I could just pause you one moment, just if you could bring the microphone a little bit closer. And I want to note for folks on the phone and who have joined that the presentation is available. If you go to muni.org, click on Assembly, and then at the top on Work Sessions, you can access this presentation. Thanks.
Great. And like I said, 4.1 million. And the really exciting thing for us is we built a program that really worked. Just in this time, we served over 320,000 meals across Anchorage. We had 34 nonprofit and shelter sites that we distributed to from 65 different restaurants. And we identified those restaurants through a lottery process, and it was just great to be able to see the push into the effort from all of the restaurants. We also saw the economic impact really show up in a positive way, seeing over 740 individuals and employees that were either hired, rehired, or maintained jobs that probably would have been lost otherwise. We also saw 410 employees in this that were able to get extra hours. And each one of these employees that was able to get extra hours or maintain or get a job are folks that we would have had to support in other ways through the pandemic. And really, this is the list of participating restaurants. It goes through a couple pages, so I'll just kind of go through it. And we like to say kind of from tacos to dumplings and everything in between. The diversity of this was great. Talked with some chefs that were bringing in their mother's lasagna recipes to make and doing different things. It was just amazing as we went through. And I can't say enough how impressed I've been with the work that the restaurants have done. I can't even imagine what it was like to change their business model from really those kind of regular meals they did to making over 100 meals at any one time and then delivering them throughout the community. Did that in real time for us. The other thing was, initially we thought this is great to bring in meals. And I think the big win that we saw is beyond meals. We developed different relationships within the community that go far beyond just that initial meal delivery. The impact on the businesses has been really amazing as well. And I'm glad to be able to have a couple of them share today what that's meant to them. Wanted to highlight kind of the nonprofit organizations that really have supported us through this. And really, whether delivering meals to children or hungry seniors, our nonprofits have been just critical and so important for us to actually get the meals to where they need to be in the community. We could spend the whole time here talking about kind of the impact of the individuals that those meals went to. They go from everything from hearing from a resident in a senior housing telling us, because of this program, I was able to have more dollars for my medication, to really seeing the impact on some of our kids. And we all know that hungry kids can't learn. And providing these meals was another opportunity for us to really be able to show another win in that effort, as much of this went out to some of our kids during really tough times. We have Campfire on the phone with us today that's going to be able to highlight the work that they've done, as well as their experience of what it meant to their community. And finally, before I pass it off to our team, this is really just one of many efforts we've been partnering with you. Like I said, $2.8 million through the restaurant program. We helped with $26.4 million through our rent and mortgage assistance that kept nearly 9,000 people in their homes. We supported $15 million through the Child Care Provider Assistance Program, keeping over 240 child care programs open during the pandemic, serving over 4,000 kids during that time. And Alaska 211, your support to that has really helped us with the increased calls that we've seen during the pandemic. So thank you much. I'd like now to introduce Sylvia, who will talk a little bit about the work her team's doing, as well as the impact to the restaurants.
Well, thank you, Clark. This program is, like Clark was saying, it's a win-win for all of us. I have here 2 restaurants that came to tell you their story that happened during this situation, through the pandemic, and how they were affected, and the relationship that came not only with each other, but also with the recipients, all those nonprofits that just phenomenally welcome every meal as they came to the door. So I'm gonna pass it on now to Brandy, and introduce yourself, Brandy.
Hi, I'm Brandy with Moose a la Mode, and my husband and I, we bought Moose a la Mode January 6, 2020, right before the pandemic. And we put our whole life savings into buying this great cafe downtown, right on 4th and K. What a great idea. And we put everything into it. We were excited. We bought it with a staff. Perfect. Because I'm not a barista. All right. I can do the books. I can do all the background stuff. Perfect. Then March comes. And we have to lay off the staff. And so that day before they leave, teach me how to make coffee. I don't even drink coffee, but teach me to become a barista before I turn 50. So, okay, we lay them off and we don't have any customers. And my husband and I sit there for 12 hours a day, playing cards, waiting for people to come by. And there's no customers. And we're wondering, how are we going to turn on the lights tomorrow? What are we going to do? And there's a customer maybe once a day. And we're just waiting and hoping. And we've got a positive attitude, though, because we're lifelong Alaskans. We can do this. We can weather this storm. And we're just hoping and praying and hoping. And a customer comes by and we jump up and we make a coffee and bake a muffin and make a sandwich. And okay, we can get through this. And then we find out about this program and we sign up and we get lucky and we win the lottery. And we are making lasagnas and we're making spaghetti and doing all this stuff. And the few customers that we have, they find out and they come by for this lasagna that we have extras of, and we're making some money. This is phenomenal. What? We've got some money? Oh my goodness. We can put gas in our gas tank? Wow, this is phenomenal. And then the next week, we can bring back an employee? What? We have an employee again? Oh, wow, this saved our life. I mean, we were at the point where we were going to close our doors. We didn't know what to do. And because of this program, we're still open. We still are in business, where we were sitting there playing cards for 12 hours a day, looking at each other, my husband and I, going, we don't have enough gas to make it home. What are we going to do? I mean, we spent everything to buy the restaurant. We don't have any more. We can't borrow anymore. What do we do? And then this lifeline came. And I was our delivery driver. And I would go take these meals to the kids. And they were so excited to see me. And I'm so excited to see them. And it was wonderful. It was such a positive in the darkest time of my life. And we survived. And we brought back our whole staff eventually. and we're still surviving and we're making it, and it's phenomenal. And it's all because of this program. If we hadn't been a part of it, if we hadn't have made it through that, we would have closed. So, I mean, I owe everything to the donors, to everybody, because without this, we wouldn't have made it. And there would just be an empty cafe on 4th and K. But because of this, we're here. And I'm just so thankful. So thank you all.
How's it going? Jason Motika, co-owner of 49th State Brewing Company. I'd like to, thank the assembly. 2 years ago yesterday, we were shut down by the mandate on St. Patrick's Day. And probably one of the most challenging times of my life because, you don't know how you're going to go ahead and react. And so I think everyone together in the community kind of worked for solutions to kind of pull through it. And so this program at the beginning, we were a part of it, and it was decisive. We were able to retain, 15 employees because of the program, right? And so I would say the same thing about the program as far as during the time of how the crisis unfolded, how you responded, and then how this program helped keep us afloat during that short time in business, right? 2020, we were down half the revenue we were in 2019. 2021 down still 25% where we were in 2019. The single bit now, with that being said, my personal opinion is the landscape that was brought up of the landscape where we're at today is not the same landscape that we were in 2020, right? And I think everyone realizes that. With that being said, the important things to remember is that all the things that we're dealing with are still related to what happened during the pandemic, right? And so while there's a different landscape, I would encourage the assembly to think about, obviously still supporting this program, but also with the last presenter that was brought up, we need to figure out a way to incentivize employees, number one, right? Because we couldn't participate in this program at the end of it last year during the lottery, even though we were one of the lottery recipients, because we didn't have the employees, right? And you got to remember for the businesses, we've seen costs rise 20%. We've seen wages increase 15%. We see there's no housing in Anchorage for employees. We're trying to bring in 150 workers this summer. We can't even do it because we can't find the housing. Housing for the city of Anchorage is the single biggest problem that we're going to face if tourism is going to increase in Alaska, right? And I've said this to some of you guys individually, but if we don't solve the housing problem for employees, we're not going to be able to continue to grow. And the restaurant industry as a whole has changed dramatically since the pandemic, right? The way costs are rising, the way employees are working, the way people are dining is changing, right? Right in front of our eyes. And it's not just here in Anchorage, it's in the United States in general, right? So that whole dynamic is shifting. I thought it was interesting when you're talking about the gift card idea, how can we incentivize employees by showing up to work, right? Because I think that's part of the solution. Because you remember, in our industry, we're talking the unskilled worker who's showing up, they're basically just getting by, and their costs have gone up too, right? And so how can we support our line cooks, our dishwashers, our prep cooks who are basically living paycheck to paycheck, wanting to have a job, right? But basically not having the opportunity. So I think there's tremendous opportunity in this program, not only the way that it was done in the past, but figuring out how you can combine programs to incentivize workers to go to work, to feed basically the people in need, and to figure out how we can build a stronger workforce for the long term. Because if we don't do that, we're just, stalling the growth of Anchorage and Alaska as a whole. So thank you.
And I would like to also say, the road to recovery for the industry is hard. We have people that are not able, restaurateurs that are able to open their businesses full-time, mainly from 11 to whatever time. What we have now is either you do lunch, close, do dinner, or just do dinner. The workforce is not there. We need to help these restaurants through this program to stay afloat. We need the recovery. The recovery is not there yet. And the partnership with United Way and with you, the municipality of Anchorage, has been a dynamic cooperation. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you all so much for your heartfelt testimonies and for the information you're sharing today. We are running a little short on time, and I'm going to just ask that we'll be able to extend for those who can hang around a little longer, and then we'll go through the queue with some questions now. We'll start with Mr. Dunbar and then Mr. Weddleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you so much. And Brandy in particular, that was just really moving, I'll say, and very unfortunate timing. Since January 6th turned out to be a pretty bad day for a lot of folks, it's just really inspiring to hear that you were able to get through it. And hopefully, this coming summer you'll have a great summer. We're all hopeful, and we met with Visit Anchorage 2 weeks ago, and it was really interesting listening to them and talk about, they're sending out more of these promotional packets than they ever have before. Everything is booked. They expect that we'll have a summer that's on par with 2019, which was the best summer in Anchorage's history. But they also flagged what you did, Jason, which is they don't have the housing. And, we've been passing these reforms on the Assembly, working with the administration to make it easier to build housing. But ultimately, that's a couple years down the road. This year's housing, we're hopeful this year's construction season will be good and next year's will be better, but that's 2-3 years out. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas that you want to share with us on how we could improve housing this summer. And I realize you're right, this is not your forte, but I'll just say, if you don't have them today, that please send it our way. And we've heard about, I think there are other jurisdictions looking into, underutilized hotels, for example, and the municipality the city is directly subsidizing them, or in some cases even like purchasing or setting up workforce housing and thinking about ways that we could do that. So that's my first question, is if you have any ideas on housing. My second is, well, first of all, have for Clark, I guess, I assume we've exhausted the 2.4 million. What would it look like if we were to re-up part of this program? Because it sort of sounds like it's a great program that was important at the time, but perhaps it doesn't really fit the industry going forward, because their primary challenge now isn't customers, really, it's workforce. And this program doesn't really provide workforce. So for either of those two questions.
Yeah, so the first question is, have we spent the dollars down? And we've spent the dollars down. We have some additional dollars that we've identified through the Alaska Community Foundation that we've been able to come in, and we're shopping this hard. We're down in Juneau talking about this should be something that the state invests in to do. So we're looking at what options are. And the neat thing about this program is it can be scaled. There are times where we can do lunch or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We could just do dinner. At times over the holidays, we provided holiday meals to everybody that were just amazing to be able to do. And so the program can really be scalable based on the amount we get for how long we want to run it. I will say that I think right now the demand is still there. It's changed a bit. I think if we talk to some of our nonprofits, the impact of COVID to those organizations is still high. And as we are doing this work, they're able to put some of the dollars that they're saving through the food program into other areas to respond to kind of the challenges COVID brings, which I think is still there strong. And the restaurants would be able to talk to it better. But I think this program also allowed them to do some of this work that wasn't necessarily during the lunch rush and doing some different pieces. And so they're able to do this in a way that added resources and kind of filled out that time in a way that they weren't able to with just kind of the normal breakfast, lunch, dinner rushes that would come through. But we feel that there's still demand both at the restaurant level and the community level. And we'd like to be able to scale this up and provide it through the end of the year. And that's really what our goal is, to do this again through the end of the year. And then talk about what does it look like going forward? We really think this would be a great partnership in the future to be able to say, what if every holiday we had our restaurants come together and make sure people in these shelters and these assisted living centers are getting amazing meals and different pieces? So we hope to continue it through kind of the first year of recovery, and then think about what it could look like long term in Anchorage.
And if I could, this funding would help all the restaurants that are having the workforce shortage pay their bills. They can then concentrate, okay, now we're going to do this many meals, because we give them a schedule ahead of time. They know how many meals they have to make. They know how many meals per day, per weekend, and their quantity. And they have the specific schedules of what they need to do. It they know ahead of time. So by then, they can schedule their staff, they can schedule what they need to purchase and get ready to hand that out. Then we turn around a week later when they send their invoice and we audit those invoices and we send them their check. Many times people had to come to my office to pick up their check saying, please don't mail it. I need that money. Of course, I hold the check. Sometimes I deliver the check because I know the need was there and the need is still there. So I really implore you to consider supporting this program. It's needed. We're not there yet, and I'm speaking for every restaurant in this city. We are not there yet. We're getting there, but we're not. We're still recuperating. Thank you.
And Jason Monteith, I'd like to just reiterate, there's a wide variety of restaurants that different sizes, right? So every size restaurant has their own ability to handle the capacity. So the ability for my restaurant to go ahead and participate in the program is different than her ability, right? And so it's very important to realize that because the scale of the operation has a lot to do. And, Sylvia I will applaud her for her execution of the program, right? On the back end, the administrative side, they did an excellent job of issuing the payments, like tracking everything, making sure everything was dialed in. So I would applaud her on that. To Forrest's question about the employee housing issue, specifically, we have to go ahead and subsidize our employee housing, or we're not going to have the employees, right? So one thought is to incentivize businesses to try and help solve the issue for the municipality, right? If the municipality can't buy the housing, maybe you're able to help incentivize the businesses to provide or, offset that cost and make the businesses bear some of that burden so they can go ahead and do that. So could you provide a credit or some kind of way for the business to help subsidize that housing? That's one option, right? And what the entrepreneurs and business try and sort out, maybe they buy this apartment complex here, maybe they rent this housing for these employees here. And then the second part is, downtown, the Fairview area, all that stuff, there's opportunities for the municipality to, purchase these buildings and then lease them through, to businesses directly, right? If someone said, hey, can we provide you lease housing for 30 employees for the summertime? I'd sign that lease tomorrow, right? And so there is a demand for it. So the municipality, through some kind of organization, Cookland Housing, you guys pick the organization, there is a demand if the municipality had a property like that to go ahead and start offering leases to businesses. And I think you would find overwhelmingly that those leases would be taken up, certainly for the international workers, right? Anchorage tourism will not run if we don't have, as we have seen up in Denali Park and other parts of the state, it will not run without the international workforce. If you're talking about, 1.5 million visitors to the state of Alaska, and we have a population of 800,000 in the entire state, you're talking about that growing to 2, 4, 5 million. Where are those people going to come from, right? So if we don't figure this out now, that growth is going to be stunted. So I'm not sure about the total solution, but I know there's an avenue in there somewhere for municipalities step in because the demand is there. And when the demand is there, then there can be a solution that can be found. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to mention too that we're over time, but we're going to continue. It's a work session, so we can just go ahead and proceed. I have 2 more members in the queue, and then we'll need to get on to our final presentation. But thank you so much, all of you. Next is Mr. Weddleton, then Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, this might be too big a question for the time that we have, but I see Sylvia says we're not there yet. And my question is, what is there? We heard, we're a statewide recession. It's been going on for years. That's where we are. We heard when we did the alcohol tax before, should we put it on the ballot? And then during the ballot things, that was probably 3 years ago. And we heard that bars and restaurants are already failing because we have too many of them. We had overcapacity. And if we did tax them, they would certainly fail more. So, my sense coming in is we already had overcapacity. So now we have the pandemic, which turned everything on its head, changed people's behaviors. I mean, I don't eat out once a month now, which just totally changed my behavior. We used to go 2 times a month, 3, sometimes every day somewhere. And I think you're seeing that. So is that going to rebound? Maybe not, So are we propping up an industry that needs to shrink? It's harsh, but that's the reality, right? Businesses change. And, we had with these changes, it was some businesses really got hurt because people aren't eating out, they're not traveling, but people still had that money. They're spending it elsewhere, bike shops, outdoor shops, hobby shops, things like that had big years because that money shifted. So it's not like the economy changed more than, if you just look at one sector, it was devastated. But if you look at the economy as a whole, we had $1.5 billion more given to people in the last year and a half, 2 years. The economy grew because of that. So, your sector's hurt, but others boomed. I mean, and so it's too broad really for now, but what is there? What are we propping up to what level? That's hard to say. Maybe you need shrink to shrink.
If I can answer that, I am part of the RBSA group, which is a roadmap for vital and safe Anchorage. And Chris Anderson and I brought this forth to the ERTF. This is how it evolved. This particular committee is concentrated in what it's going to take to get Anchorage to where it needs to be. We have about 116 participating businesses in this particular group, and we meet all the time, and that's what we're working towards, is what is going to take us there. Now, as far as the industry is concerned, nobody's ready. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but we know what they need today. And what they need today is assistance to make it to tomorrow, to take us where we need to be. What is going to take us there? Nobody knows. That's why we have people working on different plans, different areas that we have to, navigate through and see if it's going to do the right thing for our community as a whole here in Anchorage. Now, as far as the industry wondering, what's going to take us there, they're worrying about today, paying their gas bill, their electric bill, and their food, their invoice that comes from Food Services of America, whoever the distributor may be. So, and finding people to come in so they can serve that lunch, or they can continue all day long so that they can make those dollars so they can pay the bills. So that's where we are today, Mr. Wilton.
And if I can just add something to that really quickly, it's changing nationwide, the industry, right? So we don't know what that's going to end up being. You could be right. Like hospitality as we knew it is gone in 5 years from now, right? But the important thing to remember is, what is the Anchorage experience for the tourist? What is the Anchorage experience, the Alaskan experience for the visitor? And how many jobs do tourism bring to Alaska every single year? And if you want the experience of these people to be like, hey, we're going to go to McDonald's, nothing against McDonald's, but if that's what you want the Alaskan experience to be, right, then you can just turn a blind eye to the, what's happening in the industry and the struggles that we're facing because of the pandemic. Or we can figure out a way to go ahead and prop it up, because that tourist experience is so important to actually the bottom line of all Alaskan businesses. So those are my comments on that.
Yeah, and I'll just real quickly say, I hope what you heard in the presentation, that it isn't just propping up or supporting kind of one industry. It really has an amazing impact on our nonprofit sector, their ability to kind of respond. With increasing prices, it has an incredible impact on the staff at the different restaurants for them to be able to pay the different pieces. I think you get a triple return on that investment through a program like this, which I think is really beneficial.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton, and thank you all for your responses. Next is Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm one of the members of the Assembly that actually has a significant amount of restaurant experience, about 25 years. And so your story, I related to that 100% because I opened my pizza and Italian food business in June of 1986, possibly the worst possible time economically to open a business, similar to what you did. And what I found was, once I got established, and the economy had totally tanked, and 10% of the population left the state, of people who weren't here back then. So there wasn't as many customers, and it was really hard to find employees. But the cost of housing went down 50%. So it was inexpensive to rent an apartment or to buy a home, but there weren't people here to buy them. And so it was a very challenging time. But what I found was businesses that survived really, really thrived as the economy picked back up and took off. And I think we're in a situation now where we were in about late 87, early 88, when we had started to build a solid rebound from the economy. And then from then on, it was just a steady build for the next 20 years. So, I know things don't look real bright right now or look uncertain, but the fact that you survived to this point puts you in a good position to be very successful going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your persistence. I always feel really proud when people come up here to visit, and we have such a wonderful array of establishments in addition to the natural beauty and the opportunities outside. So thank you for persevering and again for being here today. We will move on to our final presentation today, which I believe will be online or on the phone. Alyssa Rodriguez with Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership.
Good morning. I guess good afternoon, Madam Chair. Yes, I am on the phone, and someone was gonna load up the presentation for you. I've just got a few slides, and I'll go through it pretty.
Great, thank you. We are getting, actually, it's up on the screen here in the room, and I believe the presentation is also available on the Worksession webpage as well.
Wonderful. I'll hop right in. So for those of you who may, I know there's a lot going on when the funds were distributed, so just brief MEP is. You have so much on your plate. We exist to advance the program strengthen Alaska's economy. So we are a state organization that provides direct services to manufacturers. Next slide. Supply chain and so with e-commerce, and it was because of the lack of a tourism season, which I will admit. There, and so we very early on recognized the need, and we tried to develop an on-demand course to help walk people through how the website, how to connect with your new customers online, the platforms to do So we learned the lessons from that, and we were able to reassess and pivot. And so what we did with the ARPA funds was we employed this do it with you model. And so what we offer now is a master class in e-commerce to a small cohort of manufacturers at a time, and it really meets them where they are. For some of our manufacturers, that might be that they don't have a website. Some might have a website, but it's locally out of state. They may have one website, but they're going to find it because they just want to connect. And I have a quote for you coming up. But we also wanted to build on top of that, and the way that we leverage the success that we found through the e-commerce course was to apply that same do-it-with-you model that really has demystified the process, makes it much less intimidating to engage in any one of these topics if you know someone's going to walk you through it, and they're going to be there for all of your questions. So it's a mixture of classroom time and one-on-one time with each manufacturer that really helps get them where they need to be by the end of the 6-week course. So we applied that to lead and supply chains, which I'll mention in a minute. And then we made sure to sync all of our additional offerings with e-commerce. We've got a sprint coming up in May. And initially, the contractor that we used for that is designed the course for manufacturers that sell their products through brick and mortar facilities. And we made very clear that that is not the case with many of our manufacturers. They sell just as much, if not more, online. And so we really need to be responsive to the way that they are engaging with their consumers. And that's a direct-to-consumer manufacturers. It doesn't matter how you sell your product to whether it's, jam I'm doing for Christmas, or, what beer my uncle's going to like, or, where am I going to get local furniture? It has to be online. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see I won't read, I'll let you read it. It's a success story from one of our clients. So this is a very small solo entrepreneur who engaged in our e-commerce course and now understands exactly how she needs to connect with consumers. She was really caught in that trap that many of our businesses are, where they try to be everything to everyone and end up being nothing to no one. And so she now, clients, has set sales goals of around 100,000 and is looking to hire employees. It's very challenging, but she's getting to that stage in her business. Next slide, please. So I came on a little bit late to this session, but I thus far did not hear anyone mention supply chains. And supply chains, the challenges that we have been having with our supply chains, you can go to the next slide. They are one of the biggest challenges that our manufacturers are facing, and it's been like this since the beginning of the pandemic. They needed toilet paper for their facilities just as much as we all did. And so the need has become more acute over time, not less. We, like I mentioned before, offer this Do It With You masterclass, and we help manufacturers balance out whether they are going to use just-in-time manufacturing, where you get the order, you get your inputs, you make your product and you send it, or just in case. And this has always been kind of a struggle for our Alaska manufacturers, even before the pandemic, was balancing those two things. If we have terrible weather and a barge is delayed, it can delay you getting your product out. So you want to keep some of your inputs on hand just in case, but how do you balance that, especially when we are so strapped for cash and as costs continue to go up? How do we make sure our supply chains are as resilient as possible? So we have the Master the Basics, the master class that is 6 weeks long, and then we are also offering a Master the Basics webinar that really is an introduction into supply chains, which if you got into business because you love that tire bike, not because you love supply chains, these Meet the Basics and Master the Basics courses can be really helpful to, again, just kind of bring the topic to the average person's level so that it's not super intimidating. You don't have to be, a multi-degree holding individual in supply chain management to understand and improve your supply chain, and that's what we're trying to do. We also have networking events for our manufacturers. They're all virtual on a quarterly basis, and supply chains are the #1 topic that people talk about and have an opportunity to collaborate on. So if I have a really heavy product, you have a really light product, can we combine in some way? Can we bring our inputs in together and share the cost? Those sorts of things. If you have somebody who's got packaging and my packaging supplier is really behind, maybe I can connect with your supplier and get what I need when I need it. Okay, next slide. If we could hit play on this, I wasn't able to have any manufacturers there to speak with you today, but this is Brad Heard from Heather's Choice, and giving a little testimonial about the supply chain masterclass.
During the supply chain cohort, I learned to implement solutions rather than basing my supply chain decisions on assumptions and flat-out guessing. I've been able to develop a system that helps our business keep raw materials in stock.
I'm not hearing anything. Are you guys hearing anything?
This has also resulted in an increase in profit margins.
It's playing, but the sound is a little soft.
Okay. I'd be happy to email it to each of you as well. it's just a short, less than 30 seconds talking about how the masterclass really helped him to streamline his supply chain, save money, which is something that we all need to do, and add that resilience. So we can just keep moving on. I know we're behind on time.
We can try it again. I think it's queued up to go.
Okay,
Sure,
yeah.
we'll try one more time here.
Thank you.
During the supply chain cohort, I learned to implement solutions rather than basing my supply chain decisions on assumptions and flat out guessing. I've been able to develop a system that helps our business keep raw materials in stock while retaining healthier cash flow. This has also resulted in an increase in profit margins and a lower employee turnover rate.
So we could hear it in the room. Not sure if
Okay,
folks
good.
on the line could hear it.
I couldn't, but I'm glad that you were able to see it. And again, I can share it in case it needs to be posted somewhere for the record or anything like that. But if we can go to the next slide. So lean manufacturing really is all about making your process as efficient as possible. And so this is another aspect of manufacturing that we really felt it was important to spend some of the funds that the meeting had given us on. And our masterclass in lean is the longest of them and the most intense. We work on specific projects with our manufacturers, like we do with all of our masterclasses, but this one has a whole project scoping course. It has a white belt, a lean white belt course at its beginning, and then it lasts numerous weeks with one-on-one and then cycles between that classroom time. So that people not only understand all of the tools that are part of what is lean manufacturing, but they also understand how it applies to their process and the specific project that they've chosen. So, oversubscribed. So this was our one masterclass where we actually had more people say that they wanted to be a part of it than we traditionally have teach. We keep our masterclasses pretty small so that the manufacturers can connect with each other as well, and they can get as much one-on-one time as possible with the instructors. But this one was oversubscribed, and our contractor said, yes, absolutely. If people want to learn lean and need this for their businesses, then let's bring them in. And so we had more than our regular number of businesses on that one. Some of the previous successes that we've seen with the lean manufacturing course when we've done them in the past is we had a business achieve a $10,000 reduction in annual cost, along with an increase in the amount that they were able to manufacture with no additional staff. And that was one of the best things that we found out of our lean manufacturing course is when people are able to find those efficiencies without having to bring in new staff during a time like this when it's so challenging to bring in staff. And then just reducing waste in general. We don't want to bring up any more product from the lower 48 or other countries as we absolutely need. And so the more efficient we can make our process, we can reduce our reliance on outside supply chains as well. And so the other thing was that, I actually forgot to mention it, sorry, about the e-commerce, is that we offer a 201. So for people who want to continue, once they've really got the basics of e-commerce down, we've created a 201 course for them as well, where they can really step it up and try and engage more. And then if we go to the next slide, it's just our contact information, and I will leave it open for questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rodriguez, excuse me. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I apologize if you said this, Mr. Rodriguez, I just missed it. How much funding again was it from the municipality, and is it all expended already? Okay, there it is.
I did not mention that. You don't have to share that slide. This particular slide was just a bit of past metrics that I was going to potentially share. So it was $150,000 that the municipality gave us. We have not completely expended at this point. We have, sorry, let me bring my spreadsheet back up. We have around $70,000 that we have not yet spent.
Will you continue this program and expend that money?
We absolutely will, yes.
Okay.
The need is still there. We were just really trying to balance out multiple fiscal years. So as I mentioned, we're a federal program, and that federal program, the fiscal year is July 1st to June. And since this program did not end until September, we're really trying to be strategic with our funds so that we can do as much as possible for manufacturers.
Thank you,
So
Ms.
that's
Rodriguez.
why we kind of specifically held on to some of those funds.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Do members have any other questions? Mr. Weddleton?
Hi, could you maybe just run through a list of the types of manufacturers that you're talking about?
Absolutely, through the chair. Yeah, so I appreciate the question because I think that people often have a very narrow view of what is manufacturing. So I had a success story from a dog treat manufacturer. Bradford from Heather's Choice. We work with breweries. We work with distilleries. We work with clothing manufacturers. There's a surprising number of clothing manufacturers, not only in Alaska, but specifically in Anchorage. We work with everyone from metal fabricators, and you can think of some of our larger manufacturers like Dowlin Bach. The launch company also counts as a manufacturer. So it doesn't matter the size of your manufacturing facility. If you take a thing and turn it into another thing, then you are a manufacturer. It can be as simple as you grew carrots and then you bagged them and you sold them. That can count as manufacturing. And so it's a much more expansive view of manufacturing than I think we typically think of in Alaska. We are not a great fit typically for those very, very small manufacturers, but we really are trying to make our resources as accessible as possible. So the quote that you saw earlier from Daisy, who said manufactures dog treats, she's a case where we had a really successful project with a solo entrepreneur, even though traditionally MEP courses are not designed for solo entrepreneurs. They're designed for companies that, at a minimum have, say, 5 employees or something like that. You can find more efficiencies. Supply chains are more challenging and they need more help. Whereas somebody who is a solo entrepreneur might typically work with like an SBDC. There are things that are unique to manufacturers that really are a better fit for the MEP. We do work very closely with the SBDC. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. I don't see any other members in the queue. Thank you so much, Ms. Rodriguez, for hanging in there. I know we were running behind schedule, and for this wonderful information that you presented and shared with us today. This is really exciting to see the growth in this segment. Thank you again. Do members have any final thoughts or questions? Otherwise, my thanks to everyone who participated and for the conversation today. And with that, we will adjourn. We are adjourned.